Okay, I was wondering what the walk-on music would be. We debated that for a little while. Oh my goodness me, you guys are thrill seekers. Okay, I've got 45 minutes and I want to share with you 197 tips now on how to charge more for what it is that you do, because I don't think your heads are exploding enough. But that was a very, very cool session, and there's a lot of gold in there, as always, Dale. So my job here is really very simple. I want you to make more money. Okay? Simple as that. But I guess, it's an easy thing to say. You know, often we don't spend enough time talking about, profitability. I'm not going to talk about a whole pile of profit and loss and, balance sheets and profit margins and all that kind of stuff. I really am here to try and convince you that now is a really good time for you to be able to charge what you're actually worth. And I guess I've got a question to ask there. Who here would actually like to charge more for what it is that they do? Can you stand up? Those of you, it's good for you because you've been sitting down taking a lot of stuff. Wiggle your butt a bit if you want to as well while you're standing up. That's good. We need a little bit of engagement. Okay, so you all want to charge more. Hands right up. I want to charge more for what it is I do. Okay, so the people that are sitting down, I'm interested. You don't want to make more money. Is that why you're sitting down? Share that. You're happy with what you're charging? There's never a top. There's always more to go. Good on you. Thank you, darling. Great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Sir, did you have a question? No, you're just participating. Great. All right. Who here would like to charge more for what they do? You can sit down now. We've kind of got the drill there that we all want to charge more, and I kind of guess that. Now, another little point I think that I make here, it's very easy to think when someone's going to get up on stage and start talking about money, it's all very mercenary and it's all Gordon Gekko-ish and all that stuff. Anyone who knows me knows I'm the exact opposite of that. Right? I'm the exact opposite of that. I'm basically a big teddy bear, and I'm all about building businesses of substance and create businesses that have meaning and purpose and just trying to do the things that matter to us, most importantly. But I do know that one of the challenges out there in the business world, and I encounter it a lot, and I'll talk a bit about how I encounter it in a few minutes, is that people who simply are very, very good at what they do, but they just don't charge enough for it. And I see the ramifications of that. I see the burnout, I see the illness, I see the marriage breakups, the relationship dust-ups, I see the business failures, I see all of that kind of stuff from people who've been in business for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, who simply never charged enough for what it is that they do, for all kinds of reasons. Sometimes it's self-worth. It's a biggie, right? Sometimes it's BS. It's the stories we tell ourselves. My customers can't afford this. The market's down. I've been in business 35 years. I've used them all, right? Over and over again. And I'm here to tell you that 90% of the time, they are BS. They are not true. They're stories that we're telling ourselves. So I got 45 or 43 minutes to convince you about why, right here, right now, is the perfect time for you to be starting to charge more for what it is you're doing. Now, I guess we've got to go back a step and kind of say, well, how do you know if you're not charging enough? How do you look at that? And I guess, well, for starters, you can tell the bank account's always empty. Well, that could be not enough customers. That could be a few things. But I think there are a few signs that I tend to notice as well. Number one is that the business owner who proudly says to me that I win every single job that I quote for. When someone says that to me, I say, I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm so sorry. Because if you're winning every single job that you're quoting for, you're too cheap. Straight off. Should be 50%. That's my number. If you win 5 out of 10 of your jobs, then you're probably right pricing. Now, yeah, I get that there are other elements in there, but winning every job that you quote for starters, don't be proud of that. Okay? We have a misguided view that I'm amazing. That's why everyone's doing it. Possibly, but more likely, you charge too little. Okay, the second thing is, and these are probably types of businesses. Has anyone ever kind of done business with that individual perhaps? You're kind of talking about something and they offer you a discount before you've even asked. Like I encounter that quite a lot. I must look like I'm mean or something or other, and they got to throw a discount in straight off. But it's like you're talking about pricing, and then they automatically go to, well, I can give you 30% off that, without me asking or initialising it, assuming that the price is important, right? Big assumption. A lot of people do that. You look cheap, I'm going to offer you a discount. Who's made a mistake in judging a customer in terms of what they can afford to buy or not in the past? Who's got that extremely wrong, right? Yeah, me, many a time. So do you offer a discount before they ask? Do you attract the wrong kinds of customers? Do you look at your customer base? Do you look through the interactions that you're having, the meetings you're having, kind of going, these people don't value me, right? They don't appreciate the work I do. They don't value what it is. They're the wrong kinds of customers. And often in business, we're attracting the wrong kind of customers because we end up with the customers we deserve rather than the ones we actually wanted to, because we haven't really targeted. Dale mentioned before, customer avatar. Do you really know who it is you're trying to do business with? And a lot of us say we do, but that doesn't stop us doing business with the wrong person, right? So we still take money from the wrong person. Has that ever ended in tears for anyone? Have you known the minute you were taking that credit card number that they were the wrong customer and you shouldn't be doing business with them? Yes, most of the time. Intuition's a great gift. It'll tell us when we're about to bugger up, and then we just completely ignore it and bugger up anyway. Okay, I know. Again, this is really like a self-confession for me. I should really just be laying down on a couch. Number 4, do you work really, really long, hard hours over years, but you never really feel like you're getting ahead financially? Okay, I'm not going to ask anyone to identify that because I think that generally, bless you, that's a common kind of a challenge. I'm working my butt off, but there's no money in the bank, there's no Maserati in the driveway, or whatever it is that you use to measure financial success. Do you set your prices based on what you think your customers can afford to pay? This is another one that I hear often. I think my customers can afford to pay that. Or more importantly, I don't think they can afford to pay that. And I'm going to talk a bit about the things we have to lose when we start changing our pricing model. And the first thing we've got to lose are those customers that we really shouldn't have. Comes in that line again. Are you losing the passion and excitement for what you do because you feel undervalued and unappreciated by your customers? Can anyone relate to this? You look around and you kind of go, they really don't value my advice. They really don't value my knowledge. They don't really value the service. Whereas we've got those other clients who are amazing. They're fantastic. They appreciate you. They value you. They care about you and you care about them. Wrong customers kind of come in again because we're attracting the wrong customers, because if we're attracting customers based on price, then we've got problems. And number 7, you don't worry that you're going to survive a rough patch because you don't have the cash reserves you need. This is a biggie, and I'm constantly amazed that how quickly small business in Australia in particular gets into trouble the minute there's a hiccup, because we don't have resilient businesses here. And a lot of that is because we don't have enough cash reserves in business because people aren't charging enough for what they do. And often that again is quite simply because no one's ever told us to charge enough for what it is we do, or again, the limiting beliefs that hold us in place keep coming back. So I'm assuming that some of these ring true for you. Can you just give me a show of hands if some of that rings true? There's some that maybe hit a bit of a nerve a little bit more, and that's a little bit of a sign, but we all want to put our prices up. There must be then the question, the logical side of that is, well, why don't we charge more? And we're going to kind of look at that in a few seconds. Now, I don't want you to feel bad. I'm not here to beat you up. That's certainly not my mission, but you're not alone if you undercharge for what it is that you do. It's not a geography thing. It's not an industry thing. Well, sometimes it can be a bit of an industry thing in some degrees, but there are a lot of people out there who undercharge, a lot of businesses who undercharge, and it's, in some ways it's, it seems to be getting worse. And that, again, we look at reasons for it. Sometimes, I'll keep coming back to different reasons. It's just we don't have a strategy. We think that it's price driven because that's an easy thing to do. We don't have a better way of looking at things like value. And it's really interesting. I've got 10 different ways of recognising value that our customers see value in us that I want to share with you in a minute. And I think that we need to be reinventing some of this kind of stuff. We need to rethink some of this stuff, and we need to really be reprogramming what's going on in our brain. So I'm here today, as I said, to try and convince you that now's the time to step up and to start to charge what you're truly worth. And it's an arduous road. It's a challenging road. It's a difficult road, and I'll explain why. But I do have a bigger purpose than that as well. Because I think with what's happening in the world right at the moment, it is actually an extraordinary time to completely reinvent our businesses. I think it's a time to get excited about reinvention, about what we're selling, our products, our services, the way we operate, our pricing structure, the way we market, everything. Because we're coming out of, hopefully, an incredible time of turmoil. And what I'm seeing in the work that I do all around the planet is that we don't want to talk about stuff that happened in 2021. We don't want to talk about we don't want to talk about BC, before COVID. The focus is on AC. All right, after COVID, where are we going? And we have this great opportunity for reinvention, an incredible capacity out there because people want new. They want new, and they want it from everyone. There's a bit of a sigh the minute it starts to go back to the way it was, because human nature, we want it to go back to the way it was, but the push is to go forward. I'm seeing it in the work that I'm doing. I'm seeing it with coaching, with consulting, with corporates, where people are saying, we don't want any discussion about what was, it's only about going forward, and we want new, we want innovative, etc., and we're open. Bring it on. So if you're not coming up with new, if you're not coming up with innovative, if you're not doing that kind of stuff, what are you? You're old. And there has never been a time, I don't think in recent time, to become irrelevant with our customers potentially quicker than there is now, by simply not adapting, being innovative, offering new products, new services, new payment options, new pricing, new marketing, new. And that's probably the biggest piece of advice that I want to share with you today. It just so happens that pricing is a big part of that. Okay? Is that good so far? Is everyone in the right room? Oh, we want to hear that? Okay, good. So I'm the only thing in between you and lunch, so I'm going to suggest that everyone laughs at my bad jokes. Okay, it's going to make it go a lot easier on you. We'll work on a few. We'll kind of go as we can. Now, I do get that this is a hard road to hoe whenever someone starts to tell us, because automatically things kick in when I say new, when I say put up your prices. I know that our old limiting beliefs will kick us, and I'm hoping that I can convince those for you. A lot happens when you do start to charge what you're worth in your business, and I'll share a couple of stories about that a little bit later on. But when I work with a business and I help them to see the value that they bring, because they don't see it, they look at a product or a service, it is extraordinary what starts to change. When someone, ideally even starts to become the most expensive at what they do, as this lovely lady over here was saying, a lot changes. You attract better customers. All of a sudden, there's money in the bank account. You attract better staff. You have a better reputation. You have more people who want to work. And believe me, attracting staff is the next big challenge. You've got all of these kind of things. Everything changes. And I've run poverty mentality-based businesses and been the most expensive businesses. And I tell you what, I know which one I prefer in terms of sleeping better at night and being able to do what I do, being respected by my customers and clients, and being able to deliver extraordinary value. So it's a big, big thing. If you do go to that level of becoming the most expensive, which is, as Dale kindly mentioned, what my latest book is about, that's when everything kind of changes in the most wonderful of ways. So 3 possible outcomes that I would like to see today. The first possible outcome, nothing changes because you feel like you've got this whole money thing under control, but it's a nice check-in, okay? Some of you will definitely kind of get that. The second thing will be, or the second outcome that we might have is you might decide that it's time to start charging what you're worth. Maybe that's a little bit scary, but it's also kind of exciting as well. Or the third thing is you make the commitment right here, right now, to become, in a few minutes, to become the most expensive at what you do, and all of that entails. So all the challenges, all the rewards are a part of it. But as a minimum, it's time to start charging more. So very briefly, just before we go any further, I'll just quickly reiterate what Dale was saying a bit about what I do. I'm an entrepreneurial futurist. And what that means is I help people, I help industries, I help companies, to business owners to future-proof themselves, to build substance into their business. Okay, that's what my thing is these days. Yes, I wrote this book, 101 Ways to Market Your Business, about 1,000 years ago. It's how Dale and I first met 20-odd years ago. That came out 23 years ago. And I think my best line in there is on my internet marketing section, which was one line which basically, the internet is coming, it will be good. And I'm pretty sure I nailed it. I'm taking that as a victory. But of course, it's a very, very different book. But then I went on, and since then I've written 14 books that have been translated into polar languages sold around the world on pretty much how to do business differently, I guess. How to do business better, that's always questionable, I guess, isn't it? And it's always interesting for me because having books published in places like China and Russia and Japan, Thailand, Mexico, all that kind of area, it's really interesting to see you get a lot of feedback from readers around the world. And the thing I've always noticed in the last 20 years is that the problems that people are experiencing in Sydney are no different to what they're experiencing in perhaps Scotland or any other part of the world. And that's an interesting point for me. This is my 14th book. Someone has to be the most expensive. Why not make it you? And of course, my caveat in there is, is, it's been a while since I've been on a stage. I've got to make the odd. My caveat in there is that if you're going to be the most expensive, you've got to be the best, right? That's what it's about. Believe it or not, I'm a professional speaker. I've been speaking about 750. Hard to believe right at this stage, isn't it? 750 presentations in 25 countries around the world. This is my bit where I tell you how awesome I am, right? I presented from everywhere from Iran to Japan and Mexico and all around the different traps. So work with a whole pile of different companies, different organisations. So all of that stuff. So clearly I've got all the answers, right? Clearly I know everything, and of course I don't. Don't even come close to it. In fact, after 35 years being in business, I get up most mornings thinking I know far less today than I knew 35 years ago, right? And that's quite seriously. So no, I don't have all the answers, but I have a very, very unique perspective. Very unique perspective. I work with organisations like Inc. out of New York, CBS, all the rest of it. I'm talking business. I'm talking to business owners from all over the planet, pretty much all day, every day, in one shape or form or another. And that gives me this unique take on what is going on. And also, I think more importantly, what do we need to be doing? What are the opportunities as much as what are the challenges? And then I get to report it in these environments. And for me, that is what I'm seeing right now, is this challenge, this lack of resilience in business that leads to all kinds of issues. Now, I'm not saying I know what it's like to be in business. It's tough. We work hard. Business owners are extraordinary in terms of what we actually do. Getting an 80-hour a week kind of job would be like a holiday for many of us. All right, I get that side of things there, but I do see the impact of this lack of resilience, and what's caused it, and much of it for me, is this undercharging, because we feel the world is more competitive. We've got to start to sell on price. We've got to be the cheapest. And I'm, again, trying to convince you through this and in my book that it is the worst possible business strategy you can have, because there's never been a time in the world where people have been more prepared to pay for quality than right now. And on top of the fact that they're more prepared to pay for quality is they can find you. All right, I deal with companies, and I have for 25 years all over the world. And I was living in Cairns, in the middle of nowhere. I didn't need to be in a geographical location that made me in the city. I dealt with companies around the world. I have clients like the European Union. I'm me. I don't have, sorry, Dale, but I don't have any of the stuff that Dale just spoke about with exiting your business. My checklist, I got minus 50 on the checklist, all right, but I'm not building a business to sell. It's a different kind of a thing, but, anyway. The moral to the story is there, you get it. So, why there's never been a better time to charge what is your worth? Let's look at this. I've got a framework. Right here, right now. Why are we having this conversation right here, right now? Well, the world's changed. I think we've all got that. We've all heard it. I don't think we want to hear it anymore. We get it. It has been changing all the time. For me, all that COVID's done is sped things up. And I think you've probably heard that elsewhere, right? We've heard about industries failing and change being driven and all the rest of it. COVID, like GFC, just speeds up the failure rate, speeds up the businesses that don't succeed because the environment changes. It's just evolution. It is no different to a meteorite landing. The only problem, of course, is if we're one of the dinosaurs who happen to be there, or if we're a business in the midst of COVID, okay? That's the challenge side. Things got faster. Great upheaval in business. Many business models failed, and they failed really, really fast. We saw that. And many of these are already starting to fail. And it's just pushed people into innovation, pushed people into, turning your business into being online when it was built around being face-to-face. All the stuff we've spoken about and we understand. But it was amazing for me how much was impossible until COVID came along. I couldn't do a Zoom call with my vet, with my accountant, with my lawyer, with my personal trainer, with my financial guy. I couldn't do Zoom calls with those people because it all had to be face-to-face. Last 2 years, not the personal trainer, obviously, but you can tell that last few years I've done all of those online, and now it's norm. How many things have become norm? How many businesses, how many industries now have got the new norm that's changed because necessity made it change, which is very, very interesting. So we have this incredible change that's going on. So that's another reason why. Consumers have changed. Our customers have changed. And for me, I think it's a dangerous thing to think that they haven't. Our customers are very different today to who they were a year ago or 2 years ago. And we're all customers. If you're business to business, you're dealing with a human being, right? There are still people involved in this equation. And I think that this is that point that we need to be aware of. There's a lot of that shift happening. It's not going to go back to the norm. I know you've all heard that, but what does that mean about going forward? Bottom line is this point that I made at the beginning of my opening is that everyone is craving new. Sure, we want our favourite old restaurant to be open to a degree. We kind of get all that kind of stuff. But there's an incredible thirst for new and there's incredible demand for new in every state. And I need to drive that message home because, again, a statement I used before, it is very, very easy to become irrelevant right now, meaning your customers have moved on. Biggest challenge in business, to me, is staying relevant with your customers in a time. And the way you do it is you do what Dale does. You stay tightly connected. You make it personal. You engage. You are tight there. You don't just do one directional content. You don't just do one firing of information. You don't just, send out an EDM and not care if anyone kind of reads it or opens it. You've got to have engagement. So when we look at this again and we say that people are shying away from anything old, there's stuff that we've got to rethink. So when we're telling your business story or what you do, we've got to turn that around now and we've got to tell the story going forward as opposed to the story of when I was a boy, my 30-year story. No one cares. They want the forward-facing story. What does the future look like? What do you do? What are you doing that's innovative, creative, energetic? Energetic is a word because we're all freaking exhausted. All right, who's exhausted? Who started the beginning of the year? I did a business survey. Number one word that came out from hundreds and hundreds of people, almost 1,000 people that responded, was exhausted on the 15th of January. Okay? That's not good. That's not good. But on top of that, even if you might be feeling amazing. You've been here for a couple of days. Of course you're feeling hyped up. Don't forget you have human beings somewhere who buy stuff from you, right? Who are feeling exhausted, who are feeling like they want change, who want different. So it comes back to this point again of what role can we play if we want to start to charge more for what it is we're doing. What I'm trying to say is you can't just kind of do the same. You've got to start coming up with something new, different, more engaging. And that new, different is everything from product offering to pricing structure to payment service to business name. If you were going to completely revamp your business, today is the day to start doing it. This is the time to do it. In a period of great uncertainty, there is always great acceptance for new. And there is so much acceptance for new products, services, and ideas. That's this opportunity that I keep coming back to. Okay, what kind of new? I mentioned there, new everything, right? Everything, as simple as that, just everything. Okay, and the businesses that embrace that, I believe, are going to be in a great position for the great recovery will be the next great thing that'll be coming along in the next year or two, whatever that may look like. So we have an opportunity to change our pricing model right now, whether it be charging more, whether it be more innovative with how we price, but also to do that redefining of our business overall, everywhere. That's where opportunities come. So the first question I have here then is, are you ready, and I mean really ready, to start charging what you're worth? The vast majority of you said you want to charge more, but are you really ready to start charging more? Because one of the first steps of that is being able to say, well, I've got to do new stuff. Okay, and I'll explain this more in a second. Okay, number two, we've got to know what the villains are. What are the things that stop us from charging what we're worth? And this is really interesting. So I won't ask again, you've already done it. Who here would like to charge more for what it is that they do? We kind of understand that, right? What stops us? Why don't we? And we've already touched on the fact that we tend to tell ourselves kind of stories. So often it can be your personal stories, the stories we tell ourselves. And, a big one that I come across really, to be honest, is self-worth. If, business owner poverty mentality is often there's an association with self-worth. I don't value myself enough to charge accordingly. That's a tough one. I get that, right? I spent the first 18 years of my life, I grew up as an orphan in all kinds of horrible situations. I got 18 years being told that I was worthless. So I spent the next, 35 years proving otherwise. I don't know if that maths worked, but it's kind of in there, right? But self-worth comes into it. If we have a bad relationship with money, that comes into it. Really interesting. I was doing a mentoring program in South Australia a little while back, and it's called the Champions Academy. And we had a room with 200 kids who were between 10 and 15 in the room. And various mentors from around the country were talking about all kinds of different things. And one lady was talking about money. And she put up a slide, which was just money, a photograph of piles of $50 notes. And she said to the kids, everyone just yell out what this means. And do you know what they yelled out? No, but good point. Fighting, anger, hatred. Like, wow, really? Like this ingrained thing, regional area, money can be challenging. It was amazing to see that these kids, their association with money was already pretty darn horrible in reality. None of them were talking about freedom, opportunity, a new bike, or all those things you would kind of hope a kid would be saying when they saw a whole pile of cash. And the interesting part, I assumed it's a farming area, it's tough out there, all that kind of stuff, that it's all about that. The lady who ran this said it's the same response wherever she runs it, in every city around Australia, any country in the world. Generally, the kids have negative connotation towards money. Why? Who do they learn it from? Mum and dad, or mum and mum, or dad and dad, or whoever the new family kind of structure is from adults. Okay? But we also have that. I'm going to ask a brave question. Who here thinks they have a poverty mentality? You've got to work on it, right? You know it. We're quick to discount. Normally, where I see it manifesting is in creative businesses, where people don't, graphic designers, photographers, people are doing stuff there. Does that ring a bell for anyone? Yes. Over here, creatives go, well, I create this stuff. When we undervalue what we know, everyone knows this stuff. I wrote a book on marketing. Everyone knows how to market their business. Oh my God, talk about imposter syndrome. The stories we tell ourselves, we've got to address. And that's a tough one, right? Not going to address them in 45 minutes, but there. The stories that others tell us. I hear this all the time. And the market is down. Sure, factually, the market might be down. But it's the next bit. No one is buying. No one is selling. We deal in absolutes. I got a friend of mine, he's a real estate agent, and he waits for the front page of the newspaper to go, the real estate market's the worst it's ever been. And he goes in and opens a real estate agency. Because everyone else is going around saying, oh, no one's buying, no one's selling, it's terrible, it's the end of the world. And while they're all drinking cups of coffee in coffee shops, all the real estate agents, and everyone's basically looking for a window to jump out of, he slowly cherry picks all of the best salespeople who don't want to be like that, the best staff, builds his real estate agency back up. There are always people buying and selling for different reasons. It's not like no one is buying and selling. The greatest line, no one is buying. And he literally builds an amazing real estate agency, builds it at the top of the market, goes and lives in Europe for a few years, and just waits for the front page of a local paper somewhere around Australia to say the real estate market's the worst it's ever been. He goes against what others tell us. From my experience, most of what others tell us is not necessarily true because it's through their lenses. And again, we're not trying to say, if you're a real estate agent, you can't physically sell everyone's house. You can't physically manage a buy of everyone's house. It's about finding the right people. And when you charge what you're worth, when you start to charge more, you attract better people who also can afford that, who tend to be more likely to do business with you in good times and in bad. Okay? But the stories that others tell us is definitely one of the big reasons. What we've been taught. You know, we tend to run businesses, we tend to run things the way that if we haven't done stuff like this, where we've learnt, where we've grown, where we've invested, you do it the way the dude before you had it if you bought a business. I bought a dive shop. Some of you have probably heard my story in the past. I bought a dive shop when I was 17 years old. And the guy that owned it was a crazy Canadian guy. And he was total poverty mentality. So it was a great fit for me with a poverty mentality. It was all about the cheapest dive gear, the cheapest dive courses, the cheapest dive instructors. The cheapest equipment is a concern when you think about it, right? It's like actually promoting that. We use the cheapest equipment and we've got the cheapest instructors. You look at that. And so consequently, I bought a business that was horrendous. Made no money. I had to sleep in the dive shop because I couldn't put petrol in the truck to drive home. I sold dive gear that was cheap that kept breaking. Not good. I had the worst instructors because they would work for food. Basically the whole thing was just a disaster. And I lost so much money, and it wasn't until I got serious enough and I challenged my own thinking out of desperation, not out of any genius, out of desperation, that I went, every dive shop in the world is the same. Fishnet on the wall with plastic crabs, whole pile of, scuba cylinders, which you make like $5 a scuba cylinder off, but you've got to have 100 of them in your retail space. Your dive instructor's got to have ponytails and earrings and basically just there to try and have sex with women. The whole model it's just, and dive shops today still charge exactly the same for dive courses as I charged back then. $299 you can do a dive course for. I was charging that in 1983, 1,000 years ago. Okay, but it changed the model and we became the most expensive. Now that took a lot, right? And I'm going to talk about how we did that in a second, but it looks like I've lost my presentation. So when that happened, all of a sudden it was like, wow, okay, everything changed in that. So I had to get out of the whole what my previous guy, how he ran the business, and then I had to figure out how to run it in a way that we were expensive, where we started to charge what we're worth, to change our customers, to change all of that kind of stuff. And that was such a hard thing to do because I didn't know. So he taught me. He's the guy I looked up to, so that's who I learned from. Okay, all of those things kind of roll into one. Okay, so do you know the villains that stop you from charging what you're worth? All of you guys, or most of you, stood up and said, yeah, I want to charge more. Do you know why you don't? Do you know what the villains are? Again, I'm not asking you to stand up and say that, but I'm asking you to think about that. And the other question about that is are they fact or are they fiction? Right? Are they real? The things that are stopping you. The villains that stop you from charging more, are they real? How many of you think they are real? I can't charge any more. This is a really legitimate reason. How many of you think that they're fiction? The reasons. And it's scary. I get it, right? I get it. But if you're brave enough to challenge the fiction, to challenge yourself, to start to charge what you're worth, I guarantee you'll be amazed at what changes in your life. I help so many business owners do this. The transformation is extraordinary. The biggest thing we've got to get over is that 6 inches of self-worth, okay? That seems to come to the fore more often than not. Okay, number 3, we've got to know our value. We've got to know what value we bring to the equation. And this is another great one because to me, we live in a value-driven world these days. It's a total value-driven world. We think it's price-driven. It was, but now it's value-driven. There are always going to be people that want the cheapest. We've just got to accept that. They're always going to be there. Okay, but what we need to do you want to take over?
Yeah, if I could, mate.
You do a better job than me.
Well, that's right.
I don't know what to say. I know, it's so subtle. But that's the reality of it when we look at that side of things there is that again, if you can offer great value, you'll always find people who are prepared to pay. And that's a whole moral to that. But value comes in different shapes and sizes. And I guess that's kind of what I'm here to talk about there. I've got a few little ideas. So there are 10 values or 10 types of values.
Did you need the notes? Or?
No, but I'll need the little framework up when we can. So eventually, it's hard to get good help. Dale hires the cheapest audiovisual guys around. I think that's pretty obvious now, right? It's, I kind of get that. So my double act here is illustrating my point perfectly, right? You get what you pay for, So, and I think it was Benjamin Franklin who had that line, the joy of a cheaper price is forgotten long before the disappointment of not getting what you pay for, something along those kind of lines. Yeah, so anyway, so when it comes to value, we look at value and we go, okay, we think about our products and services as the only measure of value. And sometimes if you're selling a product from Amazon, it kind of is to a degree. But when we look a little bit further and we say, well, there are different types of value. Can anyone kind of tell me how others see value in them? Anyone want to rattle off perhaps a thought around that? The support you offer? Great. What else? Pardon me? Community is a great one. You've got a great community for others to be a part of. What else? Knowledge, long-term benefits. Yep, absolutely. Great. What else? The ease the ease of dealing with you. That's a great one. What else? Happiness in dealing with you. Is that what you mean? You make them feel happy? Great. Fun. Saving their time is actually a very big one. Who loves those businesses that seem hell-bent on making life complicated? Who refuse to send you an email and insist that they call, and you've got to spend 45 minutes on a mindless phone call, like telemarketing. We all kind of get it. The thing is that when it comes to understanding the different types of value, I've got 10 that I'm hoping we're going to be able to kind of use here at some section. Okay, great. So, round of applause for our cheap AV guy over here, guys. Okay, so this is my little trust framework. And what I mean by here is understanding how others see the value you bring to the table. And what I want you to do, and you can have access to this presentation, of course, is I want you to look at value, the value that you bring to the table in a different way. Because the more value you bring to the table, the more you can charge. Now, the ones that I've got in here, number one is trust. Can you be trusted? We know straight away that trust is huge, but we build trust. It's not a new conversation. Trust comes back to whether you do what you say you're going to do, really, 9 times out of 10. But, people want to, if you're trusted, you're of value. Number two, your experience. How experienced are you at what you do? I'm buying your experience. I see value in the experience that you bring to the table. Number three, your expertise. Okay, so compared to experience is your expertise. And again, I look at that, understanding your knowledge, how you have actually, what you've developed, what you've figured out, the things that you've got that maybe no one else has, that brings value to you. This is another interesting one. Number 4 is the energy you bring. Right? The energy you bring to that client, that energy you bring to that interaction. Do you bring a strong energy, a solid energy, a reliable energy? Are you the one who energizes a project? There is great value in having someone who energizes a project, right? They might not be the smartest person in the room. They might not be the most experienced, but they bring the right energy to a project which keeps it moving. If you've done any work in neuroscience, you'll understand that kind of stuff is important. And if you're the person who energizes, there's great value in that. Consistency, number 5. I get told this all the time. I'm super consistent. I'm like Aunt Mavis. I'll always bring a pavlova. Okay, that's me. And initially I go, well, that sounds great. I must be really super boring. But my clients say, you are always consistent. I've been doing this on stages pretty much for 25 years. I've been writing books. My coach, everything I do consistently. And I haven't changed, I guess, haven't been, I don't know what you would say, but I have a consistency that is reassuring to my clients. It's a word that comes up time and time again. We love and appreciate how consistent you are. You're consistent. We value your consistency. Number 6, your creativity. Do you provide creativity? Do you provide creative solutions? Do you provide, ideas, thinking? Number 7, the reputation that you have with others is great value. Because if someone says to you, or you say to them, hey, I use Dale as a coach, right, and everyone goes, wow, Dale's amazing. He's got an incredible reputation. You see value in that relationship, right? Because you get the credibility that others endorsing what it is that you're buying. Okay. Number 8, values. Value comes in making sure that we have aligned values. If you've done business with someone and it's ended badly, odds on it's a misalignment of values. 9 times out of 10. That's what I tend to think it comes back to, or poor communication. Who we partner with brings value. Like I might want to be a part of what you're doing because you've got a great, you're a great organisation and you enhance what I do. I get the value out of that partnership that you have with others. And of course, number 10, the last one there, is you might bring fun to the table. And it's easy to say, well, fun, that's not very businessy, but fun has great value as well because we like to do business with people we like. We like to enjoy ourselves. Life's too short. Who wants to do business with people we don't like? That fun element. So if I turn around and said, how do people value you? What value do you bring to the table? 9 times out of 10, you're going to talk about your products or services. We've got the best this, or we've got the best service. Or these are kind of nebulous things, to be brutally honest. We need to understand the value that we bring to the table. Now, if you did a simple exercise and you asked 20 of your clients, can you define why you do business with me? Please tell me why you do business with me in 3 words. Okay? You'll be amazed. I guarantee that you'll hear the same words time and time again. When you know what those words are, and I do encourage you to do that, right? When you do know what those words are, then you can tailor your marketing, you can tailor your communication, you can tailor everything in your business in a way that really accents this is the value we bring to the table, and then others see in what it is that we're doing. And then that also enables you to be able to charge more because you're promoting the things that they value, not the things they don't give a toss about. And all too often, we're marketing that stuff which no one cares about. Okay? Everyone with me? Everyone good so far? Everyone coping? Great. All right, good. Okay, so I didn't include product. I didn't include service. Do you really know why your best customers value? And this again is a key point there, your best customers. Those who are your perfect customers, those who you just go, oh my God, that person, if I could have 100 of them, would be fantastic. They're the ones you really want to know why they value you because there's importance in it. Okay, the last few things. When we come to the concept of charging what we're worth, you can't put lipstick on a wombat, right? So that's a wombat for anyone who doesn't know, and that's a wombat with lipstick. Wombat is my spiritual animal, and for obvious kind of reasons, I'm going to suggest in there. My point's simple. You can't just put on some lipstick and triple your prices, okay? It's not really what it's about. And in the past, for me, there's certainly been times that have gone from being the cheapest to the most expensive. You can't just, do that overnight. All right, you've got to change a few things in your business. Now, I am going to say, though, that from my experience, most businesses are leaving money on the table. I work with a lawyer, a small law firm, 2 weeks ago. We changed their pricing structure, which will increase their revenue by $200,000 a year, all right, without any increase in costs. Now, imagine that, right? Imagine that in your business. We didn't have to change anything radical because they were undercharging because of their own poverty mentality. And they were charging $900 for something that you could easily charge $1,100 or $1,200 because they've got more credibility, they've got more value, they've been around for longer, there's a more credible kind of stage to it. So anyway, you can't just put some lipstick on and triple your prices as the bottom line. So if we want to move beyond that, we've got to look at, well, what can we do? Okay, what can we charge? So if you're the most expensive, if you're the best, rather, you can charge the most. I think that's what I encounter more often. But what else can we do in there? So, what do you need to change if you want to start to put up your prices? Okay, and that's the question a little bit. Do we need to change a lot or do we need to change a little? And it probably comes back to where you're at right now. Is your business, do you think you offer a great product or service? Do you offer lots of that value? And to be honest, you could charge more and most of the time your customers wouldn't blink. I think most of us are probably in that space. We just won't make the leap. And so what I do when I come along and talk to a business, pretty much the first thing I do is show them how much they can put up their prices. Once we navigate all the reasons we can't. I work with a tourism operator in the Daintree called the Daintree Discovery Centre. And we put their prices up from $10 an entry thing to $15 an entry. And they were mortified by it. All right, that's a 50% increase. That's a big jump, right? What happened? Their attendance numbers went through the roof. when they started charging more. And we put a big sign out the front with a map, which said this is what this little theme park is. Why did the people start going there in bigger numbers? Because it looked like it was a better attraction. It's still cheap, right? But $10, you'd see the cars pull into the car park and keep going. It's $10, it must be crap. It was. Till we made it 15, then it was awesome. And we put a big sign up, all right? These kind of things are there. Okay, things that we need to change to enable us to charge more, the value we bring to the table, we've spoken about, the experience, the customer experience is huge, our communication, our branding, our attitude, our language, our pricing model, our products, etc. And again, look, I'm not trying to sell you my book, but I talk about all of this stuff in the book, and I don't have a whole pile of time to go over all of it. But the question is, what changes do you need to make in your business right now that'll enable you to really start charging more for what it is that you do? The last couple, when it comes to increasing our prices, is we've got to look at rewriting our story. We've got to tell our story a little bit differently. So I've talked about the world craving new and everything's going beige. Okay, so if you're still telling the old story, you're going to get become beige even quicker now, and that's a bit of a challenge. So what's our new story need to be? Well, our new story needs to be much more about value. It needs to be about where we're going into the future, what the future is looking like. It's our new energizing story. It's our excitement story, our aspirational story about the future. It's our new story, okay? And that's what it comes to. Now, I want to just share one story to show an example of when you start talking about value, everything changes, okay? I had a great pleasure of, and this is the tofu story for anyone who's out there who needs to learn more about tofu. I was in Japan, I was doing a study tour with a client of mine, and we met an organisation, a restaurant group that had 4,000 restaurants around Japan. And they one of their main dishes was tofu. So that's where it comes into play. Their problem was that in the last 10 years, they started to see a change in their customers, and their customers started wanting everything faster and everything cheaper. And so they did everything they could to deliver faster and cheaper, and they reached a cross point, a crossroad. And this crossroad was quite simply, we can't do it any cheaper and we can't do it any faster. Do we completely change our model now and become a fast food joint? Now, this was an old company, hundreds of years old. They had all their own farms. They grow all their organic food. They make all their own stuff, an incredible history. And their board of this company is going, we have to become a Japanese McDonald's. And it's heartbreaking because we don't want to be that. They then said, you know what? We're not going to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to completely tell a new story. We're going to tell exactly what I just mentioned in there. So they started to tell by educating their staff first, then they educated their customers with in-store promotion material, their website, media campaign, and their main message was they targeted their tofu because it was their main dish. And they said, our tofu is grown by soybean masters who have had 8 generations of growing soybeans. This is how we make soybeans. We make the best soybeans in the world, which means we make the best tofu in the world. If you want to buy tofu from us, it's going to take a little bit longer and it's going to cost more. If you want it faster and cheaper, please go somewhere else. Now, in the first year of this campaign, and it was a longer campaign, I haven't got the time to go into detail, but that was basically it. First year, $30 million of extra sales of that dish. Okay, $30 million. It's a lot of tofu. But on top of that, their overall customer satisfaction changed completely because people now realised this was a quality business. So they started to work through every dish, every product, and they told the value story. They told the aspirational story. They told the stuff that mattered to the client. Okay, and that is the tofu story. And that's what we all need to do. We've got to tell the story that matters to the client, not the story that doesn't matter, which is about product and service and all that kind of stuff. So my question to you is, are you ready to tell your tofu story? What is your tofu story going forward? That's what you need to be looking at right now. Okay, you guys are very serious here. You're craving tofu, right? Okay, last couple, and then Dale's going to pull me off the stage because I'm going too long. Number 6 on this one, it's going to cost you to make this change of changing your prices. I've already said that, look, you've got to change things. You can't just put lipstick on a wombat. You know, we've got to kind of make sure that we're reinventing our story, our message, our business, everything we're doing. So it's not a path for the faint of heart. What I find is that people tend to go, I get all geared up about it. They decide they're going to be the most expensive. They go down there and then all of a sudden they start to lose a few customers because people go, oh my God, that's expensive. They freak out and go back. That's how it works. You've got to be prepared to lose some stuff if you're going to put up your prices. But it's kind of cool. There's a lot to lose along the way. We've got to lose our old way of thinking. We've got to lose our limiting beliefs. We've got to lose our comfort with this struggle. It's another thing. If you've been struggling for 20 years in business, you're kind of comfortable with the struggle. As much as you might hate it, you're comfortable with it and breaking out of that. We've got to lose clients. There's people we've got to lose. We've got to probably lose some of our team because they've probably got the poverty mentality. They've caught it from you if you've got it. And even sometimes the friends, particularly business friends, who are the ones who are saying all the reasons why you can't put up your prices. Okay? So there's a fair bit to lose in there, right? But of course, there's a lot more to kind of gain. So my question there is, are you prepared to pay the price in terms of charging what you're worth? Okay, and it, a million one stories I could share there, but I just don't have the chance. And then the last one, of course, is the reward. So what really changed in my world when I go back to this cheap model for my dive shop, where it was a nightmare, where I was basically on the verge of a nervous breakdown, making no money, losing, I was a kid, 18, 19-year-old kid, losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. Cheap clients that had no loyalty at all. If a dive shop up the road sold a scuba cylinder for $1 cheaper, they would have bought it. All that kind of stuff. I transformed my business into a boutique dive store where we started to charge $1,000 for a dive course instead of $299. Did our numbers go down? Our dive course numbers went up. Didn't sell scuba cylinders. We told them to go to the cheap shop up the road and buy a scuba cylinder because there's no point having them. We sold the best dive equipment, which was also the most expensive dive equipment you could possibly have. What happened with that? No one died. Okay, that was good. No deaths, good. Okay, but it didn't break down. And we developed this reputation, and people use this line, which I love. They're the most expensive, but they're the best. And to be brutally honest, that's the line we want people to use for us. Because if they use that line, you're going to attract the customers that are going to be prepared to pay for you. And that's what we all want. Now, it might be a progression to get there. I understand that. But if you can do that, it changes. Everything changed. My health, my well-being, and I've kept adopting that in businesses. I like to be the most expensive because I know the reward, but I also at least know how to charge what I'm worth. Every time I change a business's pricing structure, the results are extraordinary. And I know you can do it. Can you imagine what your business would really look like if you did make those changes, if you charge what you're worth? Look at that law firm. Honestly, their revenue, is $700,000. To increase by $200,000 because their pricing models were wrong. They were just undercharging because they had startup prices from 5 years ago. Imagine what that would do to your bottom line. And that's the thing. A small change here or there has a big impact. A friend of mine who used to be the menu engineer for the Hilton Hotel around the world. So his job was to fly around the world and look at menus and work out unit costs and avocado prices and put it into a formula and go, if we add 30 cents to that dish, this is what the change was. Honestly, I'd never seen anyone who understood pricing as much as he did. He'd go into a hotel, change a few prices, no one would even notice it, and increase bottom line revenue by hundreds of thousands of dollars for these hotels. You got to look at your pricing a little bit more than what's the bloke up the road charging. You got to look at your pricing a bit more than what do I think they can pay. You got to look at your pricing a bit more than, well, it's a tough market, no one's going to be able to afford it. Or what's going to happen if I lose my clients? Who here couldn't help to lose a few clients that don't pay? So look, that's the framework. Simple. Why there's never been a better time to charge what you're worth? Number one, it's the right time. This is the time to do this, okay? And there's a printout of this framework on your desk. Number two, know the villains. Know what it is that stops you from charging what you're worth, okay? Number three, know your value. Stop looking at value in terms of what you deliver. Start looking at value in those other 10 areas, okay? Understand, ask, have conversations with your customers. Like, why the hell do you do business with me? What is it? You'll find the words they use will fit into that 10 kind of category. Our products and services are off over here because pretty much there are always people that can do what we do, okay? You can't put lipstick on a wombat, okay? If you want to start to charge more, make the right kind of changes. If you can do that, then you're on the way again. Rewrite your stories. Come up with your own tofu story. I'd love you to have a tofu story and share it with me. Number 6, it's going to cost you. You're going to lose stuff along the way when you take this model, but the rewards are well worth it, which is what it's all about. Number 7. So my challenge to you today is very simple, ladies and gents. It's an extraordinary time on the planet, right here, right now. I hope we never have it again, but right where we are now, you have an amazing opportunity to redefine so much in your business, so much in your life. We all do. And don't waste it. It is my advice. I've been through many, many major upheavals in my business life. I've helped many people through it. There'll be many more to come, but I've never seen a time where I think we have more opportunity than right here, right now, to really do some extraordinary stuff in reinventing, repositioning, redefining our business to make it work for us, to build a business, a substance that is going to give you all the things that you want it to give you. That's it for me, folks. Thank you very much, and hopefully I'll see some of you in my workshop. Thank you.